I still remember the first time I saw her, leaning against the porch railing, a half-empty mug in her hand, the late afternoon sun turning her hair the color of honey left too long in the jar. She wasn't posing. She never did. She just stood there, waiting, like time had slowed down just to let her breathe. I was supposed to be there for her daughter, driving lessons, 3 afternoons a week, easy money while I was home from college. But when she looked up and smiled, I forgot every reason I had for being there. "Ethan, right?" she asked. Her voice had that low, unhurried warmth people only get when they've stopped trying to fill silences. "Yeah," I said, trying to sound casual, like her saying my name hadn't already changed the air around us. Her name was Claire. Mid-40s, maybe? Graceful in that effortless way that made you wonder if she knew what effect she had, and hope she didn't. Her daughter wasn't home yet, so she offered me coffee while we waited. I said yes, though I hated coffee. Inside, her house smelled like rain on old wood. Everything was neat, but not perfect. A sweater thrown over a chair, an open book by the window, a candle still smoking. It felt lived in. Like her. She handed me a mug and smiled. "You don't talk much, do you?" "Guess not," I said, shrugging. "Good. Too many people do." There was no flirtation in her tone, not really. But something in her eyes, the quiet way they lingered, made me feel seen in a way I hadn't in years. We talked about nothing: traffic, weather, her daughter's impatience to learn, my part-time job. But the way she listened made even the smallest things feel heavier. Her fingers brushed mine when she took my mug back, and neither of us moved right away. Her touch wasn't deliberate, but it wasn't an accident either. The sound of the clock filled the pause between us. Tick, tick, tick. Then she smiled, small and unsure. "You remind me of someone I used to know." I wanted to ask who, but before I could, her daughter's car pulled into the driveway. The spell broke. Claire straightened, brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "She's home." "You'll start tomorrow, then?" "Yeah," I said, standing too quickly, knocking my knee against the table. She laughed softly, not mocking, but like she understood the awkwardness of being caught between boyhood and something else entirely. When I reached the door, she followed. I could feel her eyes on me, warm, searching, a little hesitant. She stopped just close enough that I could smell the faint trace of her perfume, jasmine, maybe, and something deeper beneath it, something unspoken. "Drive safe," she murmured. Her voice was softer now, like she wasn't sure if she was giving an instruction or a wish. I nodded, but neither of us moved. For a second, the space between us felt alive, like the moment before lightning hits. Then her phone rang from the other room. She hesitated, eyes flicking toward the sound, then back to me. "I should," she started. "Yeah," I said. But neither of us stepped away. The phone kept ringing. And just before she turned to answer it, she looked at me one last time, a glance that lingered too long, said too much, and promised nothing. Then she was gone, and I was standing on her porch again, pretending I wasn't waiting for her to come back. The next afternoon, the air hung heavy with summer heat, and the sound of cicadas filled the pauses between words. Her daughter had cancelled, something about a school project, but Claire called anyway. "She's tied up for the day," she said over the phone, her tone measured. "But if you're free, I could still use some help. My car's acting up." I told myself it was just about the car. That's why I showed up. When I arrived, she was in the driveway, sleeves rolled up, hair pulled into a loose bun that didn't quite hold. The sun caught on the tiny beads of sweat at her neck. She smiled when she saw me, that quiet, polite kind that somehow felt more intimate than anything else. "I didn't think you'd actually come," she said, wiping her hands on a towel. "I said I'd help," I replied, though my voice came out softer than I meant. She gestured toward the driver's seat. "Maybe you can figure out what I'm doing wrong." The car wasn't the problem. She just wanted company. I knew it, and so did she. As she leaned over to hand me the keys, her shoulder brushed mine. A simple, fleeting touch, but I felt it long after she pulled away. Inside the car, the air smelled faintly of her perfume. I tried to focus on the dashboard, the hum of the engine, anything but the warmth of her presence beside me. "You're good with this stuff," she said quietly. "I've had to be," I replied. "My dad used to fix cars. I'd watch him. After he left, someone had to keep things running." Her voice softened. "You talk about him in the past tense." "He's not dead," I said. "Just gone." A silence followed, not empty, but full of understanding. She nodded slowly, eyes distant. "My husband left too. Years ago. Said he needed something new. I guess I stopped being that." The words hung there, raw and unguarded. She didn't look at me as she said them, and I didn't look away. "I'm sorry," I murmured. "Don't be," she said. "It's quieter now. Sometimes that's better. Sometimes it isn't." A breeze slipped through the open window, carrying the faint scent of rain. The quiet between us changed, heavier, charged. She reached over to point at something on the dashboard, but her fingers rested briefly on my hand. The contact was light, barely there, yet it sent a jolt through me. She didn't pull away immediately. Neither did I. When she finally did, her voice trembled just a little. "You're a good listener, Ethan. Most people just wait for their turn to talk." I smiled faintly. "You make it easy to listen." Her eyes met mine then, not searching, not testing. Just there. A long, unbroken look that made time lose its shape. And then, from somewhere inside the house, a clock chimed the hour. She blinked, the spell breaking, and exhaled softly. "You should probably go," she said, almost a whisper. I didn't move. Neither did she. Finally, as I stepped out of the car, she called after me, not loud, just enough for me to hear. "Same time tomorrow?" The way she said it, quiet, uncertain, hopeful, made it sound like an invitation to something neither of us could yet name. By the third week, the lines between lessons and something else had begun to blur. Her daughter would start the car, drive a few blocks, get frustrated, and hand over the keys. "You're better with him anyway," she'd tease her mother before heading inside. And then, it was just us again, the sound of the idling engine, the soft hum of the radio, and the weight of everything we weren't saying. That afternoon, the sky threatened rain. We parked near the lake, where the air smelled of wet earth and pine. Claire leaned back in the passenger seat, laughing about something small, the way I stalled the car, or maybe how seriously I took her lessons. "You really don't let up, do you?" she said, turning toward me. Her smile faltered when she saw how close we were, barely a breath between us. I swallowed. "Guess I just want to do it right." Her voice softened. "You already are." The silence that followed wasn't comfortable, but it wasn't painful either. It was the kind that fills the air when two people realize they've stepped past something invisible. She turned toward the window, but her hand stayed on the console between us, fingers tracing the edge absent-mindedly. Every time she moved, my pulse followed. I wanted to say something, anything, but words felt too small. Her phone buzzed suddenly, sharp and jarring. She flinched, fumbling for it, her composure cracking for the first time. A name flashed across the screen, Michael, and she declined the call without looking at me. Her voice, when it came, was steady. "Old habit. Sometimes he still calls." "Your ex?" She nodded once. "He remembers when he wants to forget." Her eyes glistened in the dim light, and I could tell she hated being seen like that. Vulnerable. Unarmored. "I'm sorry," I said quietly. She gave a half-smile. "You apologize too much." The rain started then, slow at first, droplets tapping against the windshield. The air turned cooler, closer. She reached over to turn off the radio, and her fingers brushed my wrist. Neither of us moved away. "Ethan," she whispered, not looking at me. "Yeah?" She hesitated, just long enough to make my heart race. Then she turned her face toward mine, close enough that I could feel her breath. For a moment, I thought she might kiss me. But she didn't. Instead, she closed her eyes and exhaled shakily. We shouldn't. I know. She opened her eyes again, searching mine like she wanted me to disagree. And maybe I almost did. The rain grew louder, a steady rhythm on the roof. She pressed her palm against the window, her reflection caught beside mine in the glass. This is dangerous, she said, almost to herself. I'm not afraid. You should be. Outside, the storm rolled closer, lightning flickering over the lake. Inside, the air felt charged, our silence as loud as thunder. When the first clap hit, she startled, her hand instinctively finding my arm. She didn't pull away this time. For a long moment, we just sat there, her hand on me, my pulse racing beneath her touch, both of us caught in a moment we knew couldn't last. And yet neither of us moved. Not yet happened on a Sunday evening, one of those restless dusks when everything feels like it's waiting to change. The storm had passed, but the air still smelled like rain, the kind that clings to your skin and refuses to leave. Claire had invited me inside after our lesson. Just for a minute, she said, though we both knew minutes had a way of stretching between us. The house was quiet except for the faint ticking of the hallway clock. She poured wine into 2 mismatched glasses, her movements slow, almost deliberate. Her hair was still damp from a shower, curling softly at her neck. You sure about this? I asked, meaning the wine, but not really. No, she said simply, handing me a glass. But I'm tired of being sure. We sat across from each other, the small table between us suddenly feeling like too much space. I tried to talk, about the weather, the lessons, anything, but every word came out thinner than it should have. She watched me for a long moment, eyes tracing my face like she was memorizing it. You remind me what it's like to be wanted, she said quietly. The words hit like a pulse. My throat tightened. You are wanted. Her breath caught, a tiny sound, almost a laugh, almost a sob. She shook her head. Don't say that. Why not? Because it's true. The air thickened. She looked down, fingers trembling around her glass. I wanted to reach for her but didn't, not yet. Claire, don't, she whispered. If you say my name like that, I won't be able to stop. Something inside me broke loose. I stood slowly, moving to her side of the table. She didn't look up, but I could see her breathing change, shallow, uneven. I brushed a loose strand of hair from her face. Her eyes fluttered shut, a soft sound escaping her throat, half relief, half surrender. You should go, she said, voice trembling. I don't want to. She turned toward me then, her face inches from mine. The space between us felt electric, fragile. I could see the reflection of the candlelight in her eyes, flickering, uncertain. This isn't fair to you, she murmured. Let me decide that. Her lips parted slightly, breath warm against my skin. I could smell the faint sweetness of her wine, feel the tremor in her hand as she reached up, not to pull me closer, but to stop me. Her fingertips rested on my chest, and I felt her pulse racing against mine. You're too young to understand what this costs, she whispered. Then teach me, I said, and the words came out rough, almost desperate. She looked at me for a long, breathless moment, eyes wide, caught between fear and longing. Then she rose slowly, her face level with mine. Ethan, she began, and then stopped. The sound of a door opening shattered the air. Her daughter's voice echoed from the hallway, light and unknowing. Mom? You home? Claire froze. The spell cracked like glass. She stepped back, the distance between us suddenly vast again. Go, she whispered. And as I slipped out the back door, my heart still racing, I knew we'd crossed a line we could never uncross, even if no one else had seen it happen. 3 days passed before I saw her again. No calls. No messages. Just silence, heavy and deliberate. I told myself to let it go, that it was better this way. But I found myself driving past her street anyway, slowing down every time I saw the porch light flicker on at dusk. When she finally called, her voice was calm. Too calm. Can you come by? There's something we should talk about. I almost said no. Almost. When I arrived, she was outside, watering the garden though the soil was already damp from last night's rain. She didn't turn as I walked up, just kept her eyes on the flowers, her hands shaking slightly around the hose. You didn't answer before, I said quietly. I know. The water splashed against her wrist, and she shut the tap off. For a moment, all I could hear was the faint drip from the hose and the sound of her breathing, uneven, uncertain. I didn't tell you the truth, she said finally. Something in her voice made the air tighten. I wasn't married when he left, she went on. We were already done. But I told people we were still together for years, my daughter included. I thought it would make things easier for her. Safer. Stable. She turned then, eyes shining in the fading light. But she overheard us that night, Ethan. When you were here. She didn't say anything, but I know she did. My chest went cold. What did she hear? Enough, Claire whispered. She asked me yesterday if you were coming back. And I didn't know what to say. For a long moment, neither of us moved. The world seemed to shrink, to the distance between her and me, to the way her fingers tightened around the garden hose like she needed something to hold. You could have told me, I said softly. I know. But telling you would have made it real. She stepped closer, close enough that I could see the faint shimmer of tears at the corner of her eyes. You have to understand, this wasn't supposed to happen. You were supposed to help her, not. Her voice trailed off, trembling. Not what? I asked, though I already knew. Her hand brushed against my arm, then fell away, like she couldn't decide whether to touch me or not. Not remind me that I could still feel something. The words hit harder than I expected. She wasn't looking at me now, her gaze fixed somewhere beyond, on the fence, the sky, anywhere but here. I can't lose her, she whispered. Not again. Not because of this. I nodded slowly. Then tell me what you want me to do. Finally, she looked at me, really looked, and whatever resolve she'd built cracked. She reached out, fingertips grazing my jaw, her voice barely a breath. I want you to stop coming here. The words felt final. But her hand didn't move. Neither did I. Our silence said everything our words couldn't, the ache, the pull, the impossibility. Then she stepped back, wrapping her arms around herself. Please, she whispered. I took a slow breath, the ache in my chest spreading like fire. If I go now, I said, I don't think I'll be able to forget you. Her lips trembled. That's the problem. And as I turned to leave, her reflection wavered in the window, a ghost of what we were, caught between wanting and restraint, and I knew that walking away didn't mean I was free. It meant I was already too far gone. I didn't see her for weeks. The lesson stopped. Her daughter found another instructor. Life, or something pretending to be it, moved on. But I couldn't shake her from my thoughts. The scent of jasmine in the air, the sound of rain against the car windshield, everything pulled me back to her. So one evening, I drove to her house without calling first. The porch light was off. The house dark except for a single lamp glowing through the living room window. I almost turned away. Almost. Then the door opened. She stood there barefoot, wearing a loose cardigan over a pale shirt, her hair down for once. The sight of her, tired, beautiful, unsure, hit harder than I expected. Ethan, she breathed, my name barely audible. You shouldn't be here. I know, I said. But you didn't tell me goodbye. Her expression flickered, a mix of relief, fear, and something deeper she didn't want to name. You don't understand what this could cost. I don't care. You should. She stepped aside. I hesitated only a second before walking in. The air was still, charged. For a while neither of us spoke. The silence stretched, heavy and alive. She turned her back to me, pretending to straighten a photo frame that didn't need fixing. Her hands trembled. Do you ever stop thinking about it? I asked quietly. She froze. About what? You know. Her breath hitched. Then she turned, slow, deliberate. Every day, she admitted. The room seemed to shrink. I took a step closer. She didn't move. Another step, and the air between us felt electric. Her eyes met mine, tired, defiant, wanting. If you stay, she whispered, you have to understand something. This doesn't end well for me. What about me? Her voice trembled. It never ends well for you either. I reached out, brushing my thumb across her cheek. She closed her eyes, leaning into the touch like she'd been starving for it. I told myself I could forget you, she said softly. That if I didn't see you, it would fade. Did it? Her eyes opened, shimmering, steady. No. She took a step forward, close enough that I could feel her warmth. Her hand rose, fingers grazing my neck, lingering there. This is wrong, she whispered. Then why does it feel like the only thing that's right? Her breath trembled. Because we waited too long to feel something real. For a heartbeat, everything stopped, the clock, the air, the distance. I could hear nothing but the sound of her breathing, shallow and uneven, matching mine. And then she leaned in, just enough that our foreheads touched. Not a kiss, not yet, but something deeper. I can't keep pretending, she murmured. Then don't. The moment held, fragile, infinite. Her lips brushed mine once, the faintest touch, like a secret shared and taken back. When she pulled away, her eyes were wet, but her voice was clear. Now you know, she said. This isn't about wanting. It's about remembering who I was before I forgot how to feel. I nodded slowly, my throat tight. Then maybe that's enough. She smiled, small, aching, final. Maybe. The space between us closed again, not in touch, but in understanding. For the first time, we both knew what it meant to stop running, even if it meant letting go. It was morning when I saw her again, the kind of pale, golden morning that makes the world look softer than it really is. Weeks had passed since that night. I hadn't expected to see her again, but life has a strange way of folding paths back together. Her car had broken down near the market, and when I stopped to help, she didn't seem surprised. Of course it's you, she said, smiling faintly, brushing hair from her face. You always show up when things stop working. Her tone was light, but the look in her eyes wasn't. There was something quieter than now, acceptance, maybe. Peace. I leaned against the hood beside her. You could have called someone else. I could have, she said softly. But I didn't. For a while neither of us spoke. The breeze carried the smell of warm bread from the nearby bakery, the faint hum of traffic in the distance. Normal sounds, grounding ones. I've thought about that night, she said finally. So have I. I was scared, she admitted. Not of you, of how much I needed to feel something again. I nodded. And now? She smiled, eyes meeting mine. Now I'm still scared. But I'm done running from it. The simplicity of it undid me, not a confession, not a declaration. Just truth. I reached for her hand slowly, like asking permission. She didn't pull away. Her fingers slipped into mine, warm and sure. We stood there for a long moment, saying nothing. The sun climbed higher, catching in her hair, turning it gold. She leaned closer until her shoulder brushed mine, and the contact felt both new and familiar, like coming home after a long, restless trip. You know this won't be easy, she murmured. Nothing real ever is. Her laugh was soft, almost a sigh. She turned toward me, close enough that I could see the tiny lines at the corners of her eyes, proof of laughter, of living, of everything that had come before me. Ethan, she said, voice steady now. Whatever happens, thank you. For what? For reminding me that there's still more to feel. I didn't answer. I just pulled her closer, her head resting lightly against my chest. The world felt still again, like that first day on her porch. The air smelled of sunlight and jasmine. When she looked up, I pressed a soft kiss to her forehead, not rushed, not claiming, just real. She closed her eyes, a small smile curving her lips. And in that quiet, I realized we didn't need to name what this was. It didn't have to be forever. It just had to be true. We stood like that, no secrets left between us, no distance left to cross, until the moment felt enough to last.